Hi. Hello, neighbor. Thanks for joining us today. Anna Elizabeth here from the Five Facets of Healing. And we are bringing you the next segment in our Healing in COVID and Crisis series. As you know, when you're faced with any sort of catastrophe, tragedy, or global pandemic, your life is impacted across all of your five facets and in pretty much every area of your entire being. We are bringing on different guests to help provide simple strategies and tips to sort of help you navigate those things and possibly prepare for a rainy day. And today I am thrilled to have one of our fabulous neighbors, someone I consider a friend and super relatable in a world where you might not think that they would be so relatable. Manda Lewis is our guest. She is a financial planner, and she, as I said, really does make that world very relatable. And we are super happy to have her as our guest today. So, Manda, welcome. Please tell
Yeah.
us a little more about yourself and what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me, first of all. So as you said, yes, I'm a certified financial planner and an investment advisor, wealth manager. So that kind of encompasses a lot of different things. I really do holistic financial planning, kind of looking at everybody's finances from A to Z and helping them on their financial journey, no matter where in that journey it may be, whether they're young and starting out or close to retirement or already in retirement and enjoying time with their family, grandkids, and looking to leave a legacy to their family. So it's kind of what I do.
Me, everybody. Well, that fits in so well with what I know about you, but also what I know about how people are being impacted. And as we talked, as we were looking at doing this series together, is people of all ages and all means are impacted differently during this time, and being able to address some of those more unique challenges that people are faced with depending on where they are in life, if they're just starting out, and or if they are near retirement possibly, or if they're already retired and counting on those retirement or investments. So if we have time today, I'd love to sort of hit a little bit on each of those
Yeah.
areas and see if we can't give some of our viewers some good, solid take-home tips that they can apply for
Definitely.
themselves. Or if they have questions, might spark a question. I always say you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know what's out there, you don't know what questions to ask. So possibly if anybody hears something they didn't know before, then it will encourage them to reach out and ask questions. So what are some of the current challenges that you might see in the financial planning world within each of those areas that we talked about?
Yeah. First of all, I would say that along what you had said, I have always mentioned to clients before that I answer questions they don't even know to ask.
Yeah, right.
That's one of the things that they say all the time, that they never even thought of something, and I've answered it before they even thought of it. So it's something that I enjoy being able to help them on their journey. And uh, clients are certainly in different areas depending on their age, having different struggles financially during this time. Some are certainly perfectly fine, but we're seeing locally, many people, whether they're a small business owner and they've completely had to shut down and they're now just starting to try and get their business back up and running. But during that period of time, obviously, have had to adjust finances. To others, that we've had a tremendous amount of local companies like Corning Incorporated, where they've recently had some significant compensation changes to their 401k, which is going to impact their retirement down the road, things of that nature. So I always tell clients I'm here for them to help them in any of their financial questions and on their financial journey. And this certainly is a time where clients are certainly reaching out to me, and I'm reaching out to them to help them. So if somebody's young, they're not so much concerned with the stock market ride that we've been on. They shouldn't be. They should actually be taking advantage, if they can, of the market downturn. We always talk about the fact that you want to buy low, sell high, and take advantage of a sale. We're all when we look for a major purchase, we're all looking for a deal. Well, the market's on sale, so
Right.
take advantage of opportunities like that.
And
If
in whatever way that you can. So oftentimes people might think, oh, I need tens of thousands of dollars to invest.
Yeah.
And yet I remember years ago when the market took a downturn. I mean, my husband and I only had a couple $100. I think we had $600 in savings, but we took advantage of that and we said, okay, let's invest it now for the long term.
Absolutely.
And 20 years later, that $600 is, well, it had magnified.
Yeah, some adjustments along the way, up and down. Yeah.
It's taken it's taken a little bit of a dip and a hit, and yet I know that it will come back. So from that standpoint of just investing whatever you can, what are your thoughts on that for somebody that's young? And
Yeah. And some people feel like that they have to have a tremendous amount of wealth to meet with a financial advisor or a financial planner, and that's not always the case. I have clients right out of college that are just starting out, for instance, that may just be able to do their 401k with their workplace plan, and maybe a little extra of like $50 or $100 a month into, say, a Roth IRA or another investment plan, and that's certainly doable. I work with clients at that level to multimillionaires, whether business owners or just individuals that have accumulated wealth. So it's that expanse. It can be anywhere in between. So somebody that's just starting out shouldn't feel like, well, I don't have a reason to meet with a financial planner because I don't have the money. And in fact, it's really those folks that are actually really need the help, because chances are that they, if they start early enough and get a plan in place, they're going to be in a better position than maybe others that started later in life are going to be. So they should keep that in mind.
it's that old adage, a penny saved is a penny earned, and we don't realize
Absolutely.
that even $20 or $50 a month over 20 or 30 years can really build a great bit. So yeah. So that's a really good point for some of our younger people. And I know you and I talked about, so often we think, oh, we don't have the money. And yet what I can tell anybody watching is years ago when my children were young and we needed to come up with some more money, and I was tracking our receipts and logging it, and really on that tight budget. I knew where my entertainment was. I knew where my groceries were. I knew what my gas was. At the time I smoked, I knew what I spent on cigarettes, which ultimately was one of the things that helped me make the choice to quit. But what I realized when I started looking at that, we had five. So I separated dining out, and we had $500 a month in dollar drive-through.
Yeah,
And
that's amazing.
You don't realize. And my husband was like, that's not possible. And I said, here,
Here. Yeah.
And then we had another $75 a month. At the time, Netflix didn't exist. And so when we would go get our groceries, we would buy a DVD to watch. So there was $75 there. And we were able to make some drastic cuts and set aside $350 a month, which today is a house payment with today's interest rates, or a car payment.
Car payment at the very least, yeah, for a lot of people.
Yeah. And you and I talk about that budgeting. So
very important piece. Yeah. So often, I mean, it's painful, what you did, to put everything down on paper and be aware of what you're spending, being what we refer to as conscious spending versus unconscious spending, being aware of where your money's going versus wondering where it went, after the end of the week or the end of the month. And it's a very important task that I think more and more people need to do, and most people don't. And it does help to find those dollars of where can I come up with to save. And it's so important to make sure that you're saving for yourself first. Because if you don't save for yourself first and you're expecting that, oh, after I pay all the bills and everything, that I'll be able to save at the end of the month, chances are you're not going to find those dollars. It's going to have been spent already. So I think it's very important to make sure that you develop a budget, hold yourself accountable to it, and then stick to it, and it's going to always have to be adjusted. Nobody planned on a pandemic, and, and obviously having some adjustments to income and things of that nature. So if somebody's aware of where their money is going, they can make adjustments in circumstances where they're suddenly without a job or an unexpected expense comes up. If they've saved properly, they have that emergency money set aside. They people joke all the time that, oh, I'm never going to have 6 months of income set aside. Well, if you plan accordingly, you can, and then that you can handle an unexpected event. Hopefully we never go through a pandemic and a shutdown again, but whether it's just a temporary job loss or a change of any kind, you can handle it.
Yeah, an illness or anything, My husband's self-employed, and so, he does have some disability insurance, and yet that doesn't go very, that doesn't go.
No, it's only a
far.
portion of income replacement.
Yeah. So do you see in the work that you do, particular areas where people are spending that in unconscious ways? Are there typical patterns that people might say to you, oh, I never thought about that, other than the example that I shared?
Of course, there's always the joke about the Starbucks coffee. In our area, we don't have so much in the way of Starbucks, but Dunkin' Donuts, whatever the case may be, just picking up that coffee on the way to work or whatever the case may be. Of course, a lot of online shopping. So it's easy to go on Amazon, for instance, and, buy whatever and have it, at your door 2 days later, and it just goes on the credit card. And before you know it, your credit card bill at the end of the month is much higher than you anticipated, and you didn't really pay attention to how much you charged to it. So, that's one of the biggest things I see is the high credit card debt that people, unfortunately, it gets out of hand because of that, because it's so easy just to turn over the credit card number, whether it's online or at a store, and, it ends up being that they can't keep up with the payments. And then, of course, the interest rates there. So it's something I work with clients on, as far as the holistic planning that I do. It's not just investment management. It's, how best to allocate your dollars. And that comes down to also managing debt. So between auto loans and credit cards and personal loans and student loans, it's looking at all of those factors, because that then comes down to saving for retirement. So it's not just, well, I can't save for retirement because I have all this debt and I got to focus on this. It's a balance. And so it's looking at what's coming in, and then how best do we allocate that with what you have. So those are the things I take into consideration as well.
So kind of like putting your hard-earned money to work for you in the best way possible, and to save for a rainy day, a retirement, or a day where you want to take that long vacation or something like that. Yeah.
We always say that not all your money has the same job. So, when we talk about investments, it's, you have the investments for the emergency fund, as well as for that potential job loss, as well as for retirement. So we always take into consideration three main considerations of investment objective: what's the money for? Your time frame, what's the time frame you might need that money? And then the third thing really encompasses two things. It's both your risk tolerance and your risk capacity. So your risk tolerance is your emotional and psychological ability to handle any ups and downs with the stock market, if you're invested in the stock market with a portion of your portfolio. But then your risk capacity is your ability to handle it and not upset your goals, have a downside risk to your to your goals of being able to achieve those goals. So those are the things that we consider with all clients, no matter what stage of their journey that they're in.
So you really do personalize it, like in the work
Absolutely.
that we do in coaching and helping people through conflict and grief. I realize that each person before me truly has a unique set of
Absolutely.
experiences, needs,
Yep.
wants, desires, goals, and it's my job to help them figure out what will work for them,
Absolutely.
not what work for me or for you.
Yeah.
So I love.
Everybody is different. It's what I love about what I do, that there's no two people, no two couples that are alike. They could work at the same exact employer, be at the same exact age, but their circumstances are going to be completely different. And that's part of what I do is having that conversation with them as to where they are today, what's important to them, what are their goals, both short term and long term, and helping them to achieve those goals. Biggest thing is prioritizing them too, because people may have a myriad of goals but can't accomplish everything all at once. So it's getting an understanding from them of what's most important, what's on the immediate horizon that we've got to address first. So whether it's home improvement or college education, before obviously retirement, focusing on those different goals and putting a time frame to them and developing a plan as to how we're going to tackle this. As they say, how best do we, eat an elephant kind of thing. You can't
One
eat it all
bite
at
at a
once.
time. Yep.
Exactly. And so I think that's one of the things that also scares people about meeting with a financial advisor is certainly having to put everything out there as to their financial world. But it's also making them accountable for their finances, which just makes people nervous in general. And then they also feel like it could be overwhelming. And it's my goal to help to alleviate that from them, that this is not meant to be stressful. I'm here to help relieve that stress and help you put a plan in place so you can help achieve your goal. Actually just made me think of a story that I had with a client. There was a corning engineer and a woman that his wife is a nurse. And I remember that we had taken several appointments to finally get through the process. It literally took actually a few years before we finally actually was able to complete everything, partly because of things going on in their personal life. But she had, after we had gone through the financial plan, and she was so excited about it, and she had commented several times as we were going through things, how much she really liked and the presentation and how it was easy to understand the program that I was going through with her. But she admitted at the end of the presentation that she said to me, she goes, when we were walking into your office tonight, I said to my husband, I'd rather go have a root canal before I go into this meeting. She literally apparently said that to her husband. And she goes, you made this so much easier. And I am so glad that I came tonight. That's what she said to me.
Right.
And so that's something that was a huge compliment. And I greatly appreciated her thoughts. I'm glad she shared that with me, that she said that she appreciated how I explained things and I made things easier and less stressful for them. So that's something that's always been a goal of mine with all my clients.
Well, and I would say, based on the capacity of, what we've our shared experience, I would say you do that very well. And,
Thank you.
you know, every person could be so fortunate to have somebody as yourself who really, as you were talking about eating an elephant, that's an expression that I often use, and how do we make what seems unimaginable or overwhelming manageable? And it's really just by breaking it down one bit
Yeah.
at a time. And for me, it's, academically, where's your conflict? Emotionally, physically, socially, spiritually, where are those things, to identify them so that they're not unconsciously impacting you and driving your decisions and affecting you in negative ways. So that is so relatable to me.
Yeah,
What?
I've said that. Oh, sorry. I was just going to comment that, part of what I'm official title is a certified financial planner, and I'm investment advisor, but I jokingly refer to myself as a certified financial therapist or a
Mhm.
financial fitness coach. I'm a full-time financial advisor, but a part-time psychologist as well. Not officially licensed, of course, but
Right.
it's so
No.
much a part of what I do is helping my clients through what is generally a very difficult topic when it comes to finances for most individuals. And I'm here to help them through that and make things easier for them.
Yeah. And everything that I know about you, you do that well, and your stories are just added testimony to that. So, what would be some we kind of touched on it a little bit with the budgeting and sort of the
Yes.
planning, but what would be if we go back to those three audiences that we looked at? What would be some tips and strategies for navigating the short term needs and goals as opposed to long-term needs and goals? So can you touch on that a little bit for people? Because obviously you alluded to it earlier, but people are sort of balancing both of those things. We have the
Yeah.
short-term needs and,
Right.
and wants, and then the long-term, which obviously, as you said, are adapted and adjusted as life circumstances happen or change. But what are some general sort of tips and strategies to help short term versus long term?
Well, certainly, as we mentioned about making sure that you've got that emergency money and money set aside for those short-term needs and the unexpected expenses that come up, or a job change or loss, or obviously the pandemic situation. So making sure that you've got that covered will then allow you then to focus on planning for retirement. And then it's a matter of, we always talk about having different buckets of money. And then when we talk about that, we refer to not only having the different money as far as emergency versus
Yeah.
retirement, but then inside of the retirement encapsule of assets, you want to have different buckets of money. So we're talking about different tax strategies. You don't want to have just a 401k because of the tax treatment of it. So it's looking at investments outside of your workplace plan that you might have, so such as a Roth IRA, or what's called a non-qualified account or non-retirement account. So you want to have the different buckets so that you have options in retirement to be able to draw from your assets depending on your needs, so that you can control your tax consequence when it comes time to living off your investment portfolio.
Right.
Too many times we see people that they just save in their 401k because it's the thing to do. They've been given the guidance, okay, here's the paperwork to fill out your 401k, we'll give you the match. They do that. And then they just doing that. And a lot of people, they get stuck at whatever amount they start with. They don't increase it, which that's something that can be easily done by 1 or 2% per year. I always say that, if you get a raise, ideally, it would be great that if you get an annual increase, if your increase is 2%, put 1% away, because we always talk about, well, what do you need to be saving so that you can retire comfortably and live the lifestyle you desire? And so that depends on each individual and what other income sources they have. A
Right.
state employee that has a state pension is far different from the self-employed individual that is having to save everything on their own. And so
Right.
those different, and that's what I help them with, is how much should they be saving when they start. Also makes a huge difference. What age?
Mhm.
Huge difference.
And
But yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say we tend to live at the upper end of our income. I mean,
Oh
we
yeah.
tend to live right up to or above our means. So speaking of that and means, if there was some thought that you were thinking before I cut you off, we'll finish that and we'll come back to we kind of looked at the general strategies and long term, but what to do like when you're faced with crisis and pandemic right now. But do you recall what your thought was before I
Well, it's just
interrupted?
revisiting the budget. When you're suddenly faced with a situation where your expenses are what they are, but then of course the income has changed. we've got to revisit that budget, and then looking at options of where you can go to for money, obviously, whether it's the savings account. Reducing contributions to retirement plans are not ideal, but I recently had that happen. I had a Corning executive that had a 30% pay cut, and he's got 3 children in college. It's like, okay, well, what are we doing? So it's, well, maybe we don't use that money he was going to pay cash for the college bills come August. Maybe he gets loans for the time being, just to make sure he's got cash available should he need it. And of course, then he's looking at, well, where do I cut 30% of my monthly budget? So he's really much more aware of where the money is going. And it included, unfortunately, having to reduce 401k contribution. But that is something hopefully temporary. But those are the things that we looked at for him, and walking him through all of this and talking through whatever his best options. And that's really what it comes down to with each individual, is looking at their individual situation and determining, okay, this is what your options are. Where best do we go from here, basically? And again, no two situations are going to be identical.
And because he had already been doing some of the financial wellness, doing some of the budgeting, doing some of the strategies that you're already talking about, his impact, not that it wasn't significant, but it was less significant than it would have been had he not been doing those things. He was a little better prepared.
Very fortunate that he had already been an existing client, and we had started that process of looking at his budget because of his age and time frame to retirement, already trying to pinpoint, okay, what is he going to need as living expenses at retirement time? And so we'd already started that, but then of course this happened, which was completely unexpected. And you had to make some adjustments. So even somebody at his income level, it was certainly suffering, going, oh my gosh, I got to cut 30% of my budget, and I've got 3 kids that are in college that I've got massive bills to pay, and now they're living at home. So the expenses just suddenly increase because they're now, in the house, because of this pandemic. So,
at the start of this, we went from empty nesters to having 2. One was traveling and on his way here when it hit. And so he ended up staying longer than he had planned because the country shut down, basically. And the other one was in college, and he had actually come back north on spring break when it hit, and they said, okay, we're going to extend your spring break another week. And then they said, nope, we're canceling classes, they're going online. So he had to race back down to North Carolina and get all of his stuff. And so he's been home since. So the one was with me for like 3 weeks. And then the other one has been here for a couple months. So we talked a little bit about that sort of stress, any crisis, whether it's a global pandemic, a death in the family, an accident, an injury, that can create chaos in, again, our entire life across all of our 5 facets. And so some of the strategies to help get people through that. And obviously, as we've talked about, they're different for different people. So somebody that's young, back like years ago when the market crashed and my husband said, okay, we have $600. I have my retirement investments that when this hit and my statement came, I'm like, I don't even want to know. And I told my children, if you have any money right now, invest it. Take, even if it's a little bit, it might not seem a lot, and then just don't look at it. Now, one of my sons, he's really into the market, and so he sees the market's on sale, and he's
take advantage of it. Right.
He's really taking advantage of that on a regular basis. And then my other son, he's just going to let it ride. So that, again, everybody's different. So not looking at those statements, right? You and I talked about that before we started this. People
so it's something that a lot of people, okay, so one thing is that the statistic is something like 62% of Americans don't have a financial advisor at all. And it's something that they say that 67% of those that do are going to be far more successful in their retirement journey than those that don't. They're also likely not to make the rash decisions of jumping out of the market because they've worked with a financial planner that has explained things to them and why they shouldn't. Your natural instinct as just human nature is to kind of run. The market is crashing, and particularly those folks that have went through previous downturns, with the most recent largest one being the 08 to 09 significant downturn where the market lost close to 50%, makes people nervous. And if you went through that one, chances are you're obviously much closer to retirement. And so it just makes you all that more nervous. And unfortunately, if you've got friends that, are working with an advisor and they're saying, well, I got out of the market, there's no way I can handle this, then you begin thinking, well, geez, shouldn't I do something? And it, the panic breeds panic. When in actuality, that the best course of action is to stay the course. Your Warren Buffetts of the world will tell you that. The famous phrase of Warren Buffett is, you should be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. And that's the whole buy low, sell high analogy. And for my clients that were in retirement, for those that were withdrawing from their investment portfolio in this most recent downturn, February, March timeframe, I reached out to them and I made the phone call to them and said, okay, if we didn't already have money in something that was fixed and guaranteed, then I shifted 2 years worth of their income that they were living off of. Let's say it's $500 per month. So it would be $12,000 for those 2 years. I shifted that from any variable investments over into something that was fixed, like a money market or a fixed account. And we set up their income to come from that. But I left the rest of their portfolio alone so that it could recover during this. And as it is, that's exactly what's happened as of late. So there's going to be some continued market volatility, but if you can stay the course, chances are you will be successful. It's those folks that panicked and hopped out of the market back in March when the Dow was at 20,000, for instance, and now it's at over 25, 26. We've had some volatility in the last couple of days. So they hopped out and the market went up. Well, now if they go back in, they're buying in higher than when they came out, and they're going to lock in that loss. They would have been better just to ride things through. It's the hardest thing to hear from someone, to stay the course. Again, it's our natural instinct to want to run, and to protect what we have. It's our money. It's all we've got, It's just natural.
I spent a lifetime saving it. It's
exactly.
Everything in my hard-earned money.
Yes. But the professionals of the world that manage billions of dollars of investments, and everybody out there says the best course of action is to stay the course, and so any good advisor will tell you that. And so if you've got somebody that you work with, they're going to likely say that to you. So it's something you should listen listen to your advisor.
Right, and those buckets, those individual buckets of money that are working for you, which if somebody has everything in high risk funds and they hit a downturn like this and they're really counting on that money to live off of, then doing a little bit of restructuring like you did could help them see it through. Again, adjustments, but still staying the course, just in going around a speed bump rather than turning around and
starting over.
Direction.
I mean, it's certainly somebody that's in retirement living off their investments. Overall, their portfolio is going to be more moderate to moderately conservative, should be anyway. Maintaining that allocation as long as it's appropriate for where they are. Again, looking at time horizon, risk capacity, all of that is hugely important. And then within each investment, being properly diversified in what we call asset classes, not having all your eggs in one basket, picking a sector, chasing returns, things of that nature. So that's the guidance I provide. Most people come to me because they don't understand the stock market. They don't understand different investment vehicles. And that's the expertise that I provide, is that management piece of it. And it's more of gaining an understanding from them as to what they want to accomplish with their money, and then just helping them to implement their strategy.
Right. What are your needs and wants, and
Yep.
then here's a pool of resources that, and then how will it best work for you, right?
Yep. Right.
Do you,
Exactly.
if you could leave people with sort of one parting words of wisdom from sort of the financial wellness, and I truly love your expression of holistic financial planning, because it does encompass so many things. But if you could leave people with sort of one parting tip to really carry them through if they're uh, planning for the future or faced with some crisis, what would that be?
Gosh. Just holding themselves accountable of their own finances, I would say, no matter what stage of their life that they're in. I would say that would be the most important piece, is, again, the whole thing of being consciously aware of where your money is going, versus wondering where it went after the fact. Because I think that that's important, no matter where you are in your stage of your life and your journey with your money. And I think that it's hugely important that people seek out a financial planner. If they don't have one, realize that it's not something that is just for wealthy individual or whatever, that they shouldn't feel like they can't afford a financial planner. There is a difference between advisors and planners, and that's something that, unfortunately, it's just a matter of doing the research if they're not aware of that, and certainly I'm a resource. If they have any questions, I'm happy to talk to anybody. But I certainly encourage that if somebody has worked with an advisor, if they have one, maybe talk to them. If they haven't recently, have a meeting with your advisor. And if you've never met with one, seek somebody out, especially if you're another part of the country, find somebody local, ask your friends, do they currently work with somebody? That's how I primarily work, through referrals, and so it's something that, my clients that have worked with me have recommended me to their friends and family and colleagues. And so, ask a friend of yours, who do you work with? And very likely, if they have somebody, they can recommend that person. So I can highly encourage people to seek out advice and not feel like it's something that, well, I don't have money, so it's not something I should, I need to do, or anything like that.
Right. And to know, for everybody watching, to know that just as you are individual and you have individual needs, and Manda has talked about this a couple of times, developing that relationship. I mean, you really are building a relationship with somebody and having that trust in them, in their knowledge, and in their interest in you across your entire self. So no, if you do happen to meet with somebody and it doesn't feel right, know that not all
Right.
financial planners are created equal, just like that everybody in life is created equal. So if you find one and you have different needs or goals or wants, then find someone else. But as Amanda
Yeah.
said, you have your circle of friends, and that's always a good place to start. Amanda, if somebody did want to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Sure. I mean, probably the easiest thing is all of our contact information is on our website. So I'm a partner of H&H Financial Group, and our website is thehhfg.com. So all of our information is on that website. You can also just Google me, Manda Lewis, and locally, obviously, in Horseheads. And you should be able to find me on Facebook and LinkedIn and social media as well.
Wonderful. Well, neighbor, as you know, your money, as we talked about, putting that to work for you, and money is a support for all of your five facets. we use money as a currency to support our academic needs, our emotional, physical, social, and spiritual needs. So put your money to work for you, neighbor. If you have any questions, reach out to Manda. We'll drop that website in the address or in the comments below, or you can reach out to me and I'll be happy to make the connection. As always, neighbor, please know that we see you, we feel you, we love you, and we believe that you have everything that you need to find resolution in any conflict or grief that you have across your 5 facets. And Manda, thank you from the bottom
You're
of our
welcome.
hearts for joining us, for the work that you do every day to really help people with their entire well-being. We're grateful for all that you
Thank
do.
you.
And neighbor, until next time, take care.